Okay, the first item of on the agenda is the review and approval of two sets of minutes from the 11th and the 18th. Do folks have any comments? I'm presuming Wendy will be able to pick this up even if she can't respond right now.
I'm here.
Oh, good morning.
Just the usual connectivity in beautiful rainy Pecasset.
Okay. Anyone have any comments at all?
I have to abstain from approval on the 11th as I didn't attend.
Understood.
Okay.
I think I skimmed through them and didn't see anything.
Nor did I. I saw one minor typo, which I have since lost, which I can give to Wendy later.
I'll find it.
Yeah. Okay. Seeing no comments on the minutes, can I just get for anybody who first on the 11th, all those of the four of us who are here, all those in favor?
Aye.
Tony abstains. Okay. There's nobody in opposition, so that passes. The 18th, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, no abstentions, no negative votes, so that one passes. Okay. The review of the public correspondence, if we want to quickly go over the reconnaissance that both John and I did on the new line construction coming down basically south of Sandwich Road. John, would you like to just recapitulate what you saw out there?
Right. Well, I did go down there. In fact, I went there again after I sent the first email, but I did look at it and sent some pictures. It appears to me, and I'm 95% sure this is new Verizon construction. And those cylindrical things that you see there are coyotes. They're splice points. And it appears that what they did essentially is used probably pre-cut sections of line of fiber with the terminations already on them. They bring them from one pole to some other pole somewhere down the road, and then they splice them, and they just kept doing that. I don't know if any of that stuff was custom cut. In either case, that's what that is. And in the case of the pole that you were talking about, which is across the street from the Payne Furniture back door, the Payne Furniture outlet, what I could see, and I went back to take a second look at it, was that off of that coyote, there were several breakouts. One main one, which passed a signal down the line towards the bridge, and another one that broke out that went to a small box that was mounted on the utility pole. I've never seen a box like that before. It seemed to have, and it's hard to tell from the picture, like 12 little outlets or outputs on it, which I suspect are fiber breakouts for residential connection. But I've never, where I lived in Natick, the way that when I first put my system in, it was literally direct from my house to the central office. But when they expanded later on, they put in a big termination box down the street that was closer to ground level, and it had more than 12. It probably had 36 connections, or maybe 64 connections, as they normally break the fiber out. So this is like a smaller breakout. All I can confirm to you is that the cable runs from the coyote to that little breakout. I am positive this is Verizon's new construction. Everything was new. And I haven't seen any Comcast doing construction at all. It's all new stuff. So I would say that it's all Verizon. They're getting prepared to do residential FTTH service, but obviously they haven't connected to any residents yet.
Okay, it was definitely the lower of the two cables that are on the lowest run on each of the poles, right?
Right. Yes, it was the lowest cable, and that's normally where they would put the newest stuff.
Right.
You just keep going down, and you can see, as I pointed out in the picture, if you look up above, you can see where Comcast is, because you can see the cable tap up there, the standard cable television tap that they use to break off from a larger cable down to a smaller service.
Okay.
So that's what's going on with that right now. So yeah, that's Verizon. What they're going to do with it, I'm not quite sure, but the signs are still up saying FiOS. So I assume at some point they're going to start showing up at people's homes or emailing them or whatever and saying, gee, we're offering this service.
Okay. And
John,
what I did is
quick
I traced.
question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where? Yeah,
Quick
where?
question. Is what they put, the woman who was referencing, is it a coyote you referenced?
That's
On
what
her property or on the pole that's on
It's
her
on the
property?
pole. That's what she was referencing. Yeah.
Is that a temporary?
No,
until
it's a
gone.
permanent thing. This is how they splice runs of fiber optic cable. Inside of that, there are places to plug in connections from both sides so that it connects from one to the other, or to break out. So, for instance, there may be inside of that fiber, there may be 64, 128, I don't know, depending on the type of fiber they use, possible individual fiber strands. And then inside of that long cylindrical coyote, is where they break out and determine, okay, well, this many are going further down the line, this many are breaking off and going locally or whatever. Beyond that, I couldn't possibly tell without, getting up there with a ladder and
Right.
looking
Well,
at it.
just
It
on
seems
that
very
particular.
low.
Yeah, and it's gone now. Okay, and Janet
They
said
moved it up.
Verizon
It's up on the
came.
pole now.
They
Oh,
moved it
it's
up on the
higher
pole.
up. Okay.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
haven't been
So-
by. You know what? I didn't even notice, and I go by there almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
So
could have had the
yeah.
splicing separated from the hanging, so one person basically fused the wires together, put it in a permanent case, and left it for the next guy to attach.
That is
Okay.
normally
Exactly.
exactly what they do. There are people that
Okay.
are the experts on running the stuff and people that are experts on implementing the actual fiber splices. Although it's become, in the old days, it was quite an art. They've got some machinery now, which I think you actually said some in your video, Brian, that makes it a lot easier for field technicians to do. I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, these cables were pre-terminated. So literally they just went and plugged them in from one to the next to the next.
Yeah, those permanent ones are done with a $50,000 splicer.
Yeah.
They make emergency splicers at like $500, and lots of places recommend that if there's a municipal network, everybody down to the secretary learns how to do a $500 splice for when a storm comes through.
Yeah.
But the pros with $50,000 one come to buy later and put the whole canister back together perfectly and seal it all up.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my reconnaissance was that lower line starts somewhere around the Bourne Bridge. I couldn't. It goes up into the woods, and I couldn't see it. But it certainly came down Sandwich Road. I didn't check Trowbridge Road, but going down both County Road and Shore Road. On County Road, it stops at about Catherine Lane, if you guys know where that is. It's one of the entrances to the little development on Haywood. And then on the Shore Road side, it terminates at Briarwood. In other words, as far down as the residences south of Monument Beach Village stop and the town forest or the watershed area begins. So that's exactly what they said they were going to do, in those areas. I think the 759 exchange goes a little further into Bennett's Neck, but not much further. And, I didn't see any evidence of it there. So they're moving forward. Okay.
Yeah, they
So
still
I-
haven't communicated though anything to us formally though, so make sure it's clear
Well-
for the public
well,
record
exactly.
and
We-
TV. Or it's all speculation based on best guesses observing it because they won't provide us an answer.
And
Right.
they
Okay,
may
well,
not even do residential service until they feel that they have enough subscribers to make the cost of, because as Brian will tell you, the biggest cost really is the connection between the pole and the residents. That's where they have to put in a little bit more labor. For each individual house, they have to put in an ONT, and then they have to test it. And so I don't know. I know in Natick, when I lived there, months before they did stuff, they were sending out all kinds of mail, and actually a salesperson showed up at my doorstep saying, are you interested? And I said, sign me up. So they're probably just trying to determine at this point what their market is and when they want to go ahead.
It's roughly about right. The passing costs a little more, but if they they're trying to make sure when they do the installs, they have a whole queue of them, because if it's just one install, the install cost becomes astronomical. But if they have like a long list of people begging for it, they can have an installer come to the Cape and bang them all out in a day. And saves them cost savings by having the demand figured out ahead of time.
Yeah, of course. Presumably they want to bring a crew down, and basic crew here for like a week in a hotel, and just have them go do, you know, all of the ones, the backlog of orders that they have.
And then you can
Um,
split it up into 3 different people, so you don't have one guy struggling to do all the different things. You have it split to someone's doing the splicing, someone's doing the hanging, and someone else is doing the installs, so which is like different skill sets.
mhm.
Well, I do happen to know one of my friends who works for Verizon actually did this work up in the Metro West area, but he lives here, and he recently transferred down here to the Yarmouth office. So they may actually have some people locally who have the skills also to do it.
They also often, the fiber splicers, the $50,000 ones are almost always freelance people. Like even Verizon might not have that person on staff, and so they got to schedule those people out.
Mhm.
It's
Okay, well, I'm
it's
gonna
high
bring
risk
this,
work.
just get this item to a close and move forward. The bottom line for this, Wendy, I think, is that there's very strong evidence, but no confirmation from Verizon that they're putting a lot of investment for fiber optic expansion into the areas that they said they would, Gray Gables and Monument Beach, or where they've been advertising at least. And we don't know when they're going to roll that out. As you saw in my my email back to Janet Kelly, the person who originally corresponded, I asked her, and I'm going to ask Beth Agrillo, who's the head of the Monument Beach Association, to just keep their ears to the ground, or ears to the rail, and just hear how many people are getting solicitations directly to sign up, and how many people are actually going to switch from Comcast to this. That's a good idea. It might be a good precursor identification of what the ultimate take rate would be for a different system from Comcast. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
my
what-
brother's in
one
Monument
question
Beach.
on
I
this.
asked him to fill me in if he hears of anybody in his little area also.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
Is it just main roads, or are they also going off onto side streets with these setups?
I looked at least down the one line ran down by Briarcliff. So I don't know. I think there are lines through the woods there through I think Bourne Conservation Trust owns some of the woods on the shore side of Shore Road. And there are utility poles that go through there. So I haven't followed to see how far into the woods these go.
Yeah, so if it's just main roads or somewhat central spots, it could be for FWA support. So we don't, until they tell us, we don't know. But if we start seeing these pop on every small street around here, then that would indicate something else. That would indicate
Right.
more likely FiOS.
Well, this
Okay.
might be the first step. Then they were just like
Yeah.
I said, I saw one thing that looked like an absolute breakout to me, and my guess is that's what they're going to do. But when the weather clears up, I can go take a look around, like drive up to Gray Gables and see if I can see anything going on. I thought someone did report to us that they had something going on outside their house, but I don't know where that house was. So
Yeah,
Right.
the way they
I
do
haven't
their
seen-
tech is they share
We're-
it. So it can be the same wire
Yeah.
for FiOS and FWA and for cell.
Okay,
Yeah,
Anne-Marie?
I'm off a county and we're all underground, but I haven't seen, we've had a truck parked at the bottom of Shaker Drive, but that's about it.
Okay. Moving forward, some apologies here. The next item is prep for the presentation and report to the select board. And my inference from the select board meeting is that there is a very short meeting next week, or the next meeting is February 6th, I think. And then really the next opportunity for us to present, and Anne-Marie confirmed, is going to be the meeting on the 13th.
Mm.
So, unfortunately, because of my heating problem, I have been all consumed trying to find solutions to my heating problem, and haven't done much with the presentation right now. other than the one table that I sent along last night. My concern is, and Brian will attest to this, is that there's a lot of moving parts moving around on different funding opportunities, initiatives, et cetera, and they're changing almost day by day or hour by hour. So I had started to put this table together. Has everybody got that last night?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, anybody not see it?
I'm gonna open it now. I have not had a chance to look at my email at all this morning.
Bob, you can share if you can. I did multiple share.
Yeah, okay, let me get Zoom to share here. One moment.
Because we don't see you at all, Bob. So hopefully you can. If not, I think I can share it.
Okay, let me
Oh, there's your second appearance.
yeah, let me go to the second appearance. Come on.
No,
And
we
share
got
screen.
NBI's Bourne data on there.
Excellent.
Really?
Share screen.
Yeah, but you're not kidding when you say an hour by hour. This stuff's changing because that one. Cape
Okay,
Cod
can
Commission
everybody
looked at
see
was
that
correct.
now?
Yep. Yep.
Ah,
We
there
see
we
it.
Okay.
are. Yes.
I just started to list in kind of chronological order all of the pieces that are here. You know, if anybody, you can see off to the right on that first one, for instance, I said it's unclear if it's fiber to the house or FWA. And hookups and pricing plans are not yet offered. Just a quick summary, but I think the select board would appreciate just to see these moving parts. And frankly, this ought to be done in erasable pencil because it's changing so quickly. And we'll get to it in a minute. But somehow I think this needs to go in the report, and a reduced, fewer words version needs to go up on the screen towards the end of the presentation to just let the select board know where we are and where things are going to be going very quickly.
Okay.
Anne Marie, do you get a sense that they're getting confused with, the board is getting confused with some of the detail that we're digging into?
Well, the board doesn't know all the things we're digging into, right? That's the reason
Right,
for the
they'll see
report.
after they do it. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where the value of the report will come in.
okay.
But I think a quick, overview of this slide, but a full page like this. So like, for instance, Tuesday night, the Recreation Committee presented. And they had maybe, I think about nine pages, nine or so slides.
Right.
But the actual packet they sent was 28 pages long. So I think that's what's probably going to happen here. Highlight, have the PowerPoint presentation highlighting these things,
Mhm.
but the actual packet you send to the board obviously
Yeah.
can be more narrative and longer.
What
And
I was thinking
I
for,
do try to define terms, even if we've defined them a dozen times before, just to sort of keep people's minds on track.
well, I
Yeah.
may be doing some of the initial definition of some of the terms verbally in the
Oh,
presentation,
yeah.
just to speed this up. But I was thinking of a very simple, perhaps 3-column table that lists all of the items on this. And let me just scroll down here a bit. This thing runs
Not
onto
make
2
it any more
pages.
complicated. These are just for construction. There's even another set of these for digital equity, which is the Cape Cod Commission's starting to think they almost need a full-time person for the Cape to handle all of those.
What a good idea.
Yeah. In fact, I
Yeah.
didn't put that in there too. That's another shoe that's going to fall here. We're going to get an interim report on digital equity here in the next, I'm trying to think. Liz is chasing that down because she's managing that contract. But, I said we would like the interim report sooner rather than later, even if it's less complete, just so that we can use that for planning purposes, and said she'd pass that along to the Cape Cod Commission. But that's another thing. There'll be an interim maybe in February. Without going into great detail, I'm going to just jump ahead only because Brian got a lot of other intelligence. If you want to look at back to the agenda at I think it's item G, which is the Brian's participation in the meeting that occurred yesterday. Brian, would you just like to recap about some of the fast changing deadlines, events, et cetera, opportunities that that MBI presented there?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so MBI held a digital equity event yesterday. Cape Cod Commission was there. Steve Tupper was there. Helene was there, along with several faces from some of the other groups that we work with. Not a ton of other Cape people though. A lot of off Cape people, and they have a nonprofit consultant there, and they were going over all the different funding sources of digital equity and explaining how to, you know, some best practices. Here's what some cities have done with like pages with all the resources, because what they're finding is a lot of times people don't know all the resources that are out there. MBI announced some new grants that are coming or about to be published for digital equity implementation. So there's going to be a $100,000 grant that will be automatically eligible for because we have a digital equity plan. So potentially we need to speak with the Cape Cod Commission to tweak the final draft of the report to dovetail right into that. The other towns started pressing MBI on speed testing, and they said they don't have an answer and quickly got off stage as fast as possible. So,
oh gosh.
Yeah, so our exact question that we've been asking for 2 years, someone else tried to ask in another way and got told we don't have an answer. So that's interesting. And yeah, so they seem to be focusing a lot of resources on digital equity. So reframing anything we ask them for as a digital equity initiative may go over better when dealing with MBI.
Well, that
Okay.
would clearly cover
Oh.
the middle school Chromebook thing, because that goes everywhere in town.
And there's one more thing that's going to go over like a lead balloon on the Cape that I heard. Apparently the way the BEAD rules are written is if there's excess funds after serving all the unserved, which is supposedly one town, and all the underserved, which is, you know, arguable everywhere, and then the community anchors, which we learned prisons are community anchor institutions. So we potentially want to reach out to the Barnstable County Prison in Bourne and sort out if they have fiber there. They're within spitting distance of Open Cape's backbone, so an extension there wouldn't be a big deal. There's a bunch of digital equity money for the migrants to the base, so potentially we also want to talk to the base housing, since that's going to be part of our BEAD plan. And the thing that we're not going to love is any excess after community anchors are served goes to digital equity initiatives. And MBI is expecting to not spend all the BEAD money on fiber construction and end up having a whole bunch of money for even more digital equity projects instead of fixing the internet.
Well, you know, again, that points out the urgency of the commission's interim report on digital equity, because the certainly the number and the digital the geographic spread of those individuals determines where service has to be run. And you know, any company, either of the companies or us or any other entity would be foolish not to allow hookups for any passings that of any of the new lines that run out to those places or those individuals.
We might need to go a step sooner in the process. So I think that's why we need to set up some time with MBI and the Cape Cod Commission, run this speed testing by them, make sure this data is going to be compliant. Potentially the Cape Cod Commission might want to take that Cape-wide if it's a viable model. You know, this is all very informal talk, thinking, okay, how do we get BEAD dollars to the Cape? But if this is if this is the, like, if MBI is still dodging speed test questions, but we know this is a data set they'll accept, it might become even more imperative to squeeze it into everyone's digital equity reports and get speed testing done for a challenge. So MBI is fully intent on having leftover money. So we need to make sure they understand that a challenge is coming, and the Cape needs some dollars to fix the problem before they move on to digital equity issues.
And
Right.
Brian, I went to the MBI booth. We didn't have a whole lot of time for going through vendors with the schedule I had at the Mass Municipal Conference in Boston.
Excuse me.
And they were doing the same thing. There's going to be a bead challenge. There's going to be a bead challenge. And I, was trying to explain about, speed test and the ultimate timing of it. And I asked the question every which way, and their answer was, there's going to be a challenge, an opportunity to challenge. And I was like, okay, I've heard this.
Well, we're not the only ones. That was funny when someone else was asking and they're like, "Oop, I gotta go. Sorry." I'm like, "Come on, like this is crazy." I think it was Bob Espandola. I don't know the face, but the voice sounded like Bob Espandola was stirring the pot and asking about speed testing, and I think so. Don't quote me on him, but it sounded like him.
Right. Brian, do you have a sense of why they're resisting passing on this information? Do they not have it, or is there some reason that they don't want to share it?
So my kindest way to deal with it, to describe MBI, is they're understaffed. So what they were saying, hey, whenever you see these grants, call us if you have questions. We're not some pie in the sky organization. We want to talk to you. And then when I start pressing them on details, I'm like, okay, so why did the gap funding have a requirement that you already have broadband debt in order to get the waiver, and to become an entity who can apply? And so we weren't an eligible entity because we didn't have X, Y, and Z. And he just stares at me like he had never heard this. And then he started trying to say that I must have misunderstood the rules. Whereas, I see some shaking of heads where I'm thinking I wasn't the first one to take a crack at the GAP grant. It was actually Catherine and Anne Marie, and I believe they ran it by the town administrator. And you're all just like, this won't work. And I looked at it, I'm like, this isn't going to work. And so I started pressing MBI. They had no clue that this was in there. So I'm starting to wonder who their consultant is who writes this, and writes it in such a way. And after GAP was closed, MBI was somewhat admitted that GAP was intended for the ISPs. Caught them off guard with that. So
can I ask a follow-up question? Is there any, in your mind, would there be a good reason to perhaps try to gain some legislative support from one of our reps?
Yes.
Okay, to twist their arm? Because it seems like whenever the state reps get involved, all of a sudden things start happening.
They, for an understaffed organization, they need to know that this is a legislative priority. And I would think the only way to get them to act is to wrangle in legislators to make it a priority, because we've been asking and asking and asking, and other people are asking, and you can't get anything done with MBI when they say, hey, we're here to help, and then they abandon you when you ask for the help due to staffing or priorities. If it's not a priority, they don't have time to deal with it. So yes, emphatic yes.
Well, I do know through so at this conference we also had our SIMLA meeting in person, and the lieutenant governor came to that meeting to have a Q&A, and the two that certainly is a focus and on the agenda with respects to service to the Cape, broadband service to the Cape. It's in the Governor Healy also spoke to it in her keynotes speech at the beginning of the conference. But we were able to have some one-on-one with the lieutenant governor, and they are definitely focused on it. So for Governor Healy to talk about it, for the lieutenant governor to hear it, there was representation there from the Cape Cod Commission and leaders from all the municipalities on Cape Cod. So hopefully, and Markey was there. So hopefully, it's on the right people's radar. And I think the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease in this situation, and we just have to keep at it.
Okay, well, my
Okay.
WD-40 is in storage then for a while.
Both
Because
for
there is a
Brian,
disconnect from the leadership to the execution team, so to speak, and
Yeah.
it hasn't either the resources or the whatever hasn't trickled down. The message hasn't trickled down from Healy. And
Right, I think they're true, right? So this has been a task given, a charge given to this entity. And then, you know, that whole reporting back and circling around, I think that's where the break is happening. But I think if we, like I said, continue the conversation with our representatives, and keep the bug in the ear, that hopefully that disconnect will happen, will be resolved.
do you have any suggestions on how to keep bugs in ears? Because now's the time, because they could totally. So right now they're finalizing the rules for the digital equity $100,000 grant. They said they're planning on creating other categories, so since it doesn't fit neatly in the existing categories, so we need them to create another category, have speed testing that's been identified in digital equity. So if they just squeeze that in right now, like every town could go and get some speed test money Cape-wide to do this without even having to wait for a town meeting. So how squeaky should we be to make sure the rules get written the way that they need to be written to do this job?
well, I'll
Well,
mention,
I'm maybe perhaps the key piece here is Chrissy with the Cape Cod Commission, or even our
Senatori?
local rep, Steve Mealy,
okay,
for the commission.
So I
I don't
emailed
know
the
what their
commission to get on their
I think
schedule.
they have a
I'll
pretty
CC you.
Do they have a good relationship with MBI?
They have the best relationship with MBI of anyone on the Cape.
Okay. All right. So maybe that's where we start.
Okay, I'll add you to the chain, and maybe you can help
Okay.
convey the
Yeah.
priority and
And I
urgency.
I'll give Steve a call.
okay.
What I
And
took
if
out
he-
of what Brian sent out last night is that $100,000. I mean, that could pay for speed testing of what we talked about, the Chromebook speed testing at a lot of locations.
Oh,
And
they said the other thing is the library wants Chromebooks, so it's kind of a twofer. If we can make a nice digital equity pitch. The library needs some Chromebooks. We're also using the Chromebook technology for the speed testing, so we can hit actually two of the high up things on the digital equity report in one shot. So it's kind of actually elegant when they said, hey, yeah, the libraries are all looking for Chromebooks to loan out. And I was like, oh yeah, you want to work with some Chromebooks? We have some ideas around those. So
Not a
Great.
good idea.
Just both to Brian and to Anne Marie for the two meetings that you attended. I'm going back to the Gap Network grant funding, which Brian, you said that's going to be announced imminently, very quickly.
the first round. So MBI seems to, I don't know what they're thinking with that. But we should talk to them and say, why can't we apply for a Gap grant waiver? You've made these rules too tight. Hey, you're saying you're approachable. We want to approach you and discuss the Gap grant, and we want to discuss the digital equity grant, and why how do we adjust the rules ever so slightly to do the job that they're intended to do, but not the way it was written.
Well, the question I have for both of you is with regard to that prohibition that we apparently found and they didn't know existed. Did either of you hear of any municipalities other than New Bedford that applied for a round one Gap network grant?
None.
None.
It was intended for ISPs.
Okay. Well, the proof is in the pudding. We ought to ask them exactly how many, what the categories of applicants for these grants were when they finally announced the winners, or the presumed winners. Okay. That I think would be absolute evidence that this whole thing is biased towards the status quo, if you want to consider the current ISPs the status quo. Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing here. Can I
just bring up one thing, Bob? You mentioned about Verizon and the possibility of FWA, and I do recall that Ellen Cummings said, no, everything is going to be FTTH, fiber to the home, no FWA. So at least with regards to what we were talking about locally. So I'm not sure that FWA is even in the picture at this point.
She
I don't
also
think it
said
is either,
FWA
not
has
with
a place.
Verizon.
I'm
She-
sorry?
she-
Brian, first?
She also said FWA does have a place on Cape Cod. So
The other point too, with regard to Ellen Cummings, is that she was clueless about the Gray Gables Monument Beach extension. She said, "Oh no, those are just trunk lines, and
Yeah.
those are just pass through and whatever." So,
Yeah.
she wasn't aware what at least maybe
I
the
think she
retail
knows
arm
what's
of
going on, but for whatever reason, she's not permitted to make any public pronouncements. And I'm not sure what the reason is yet. I have no idea. It's got to be an internal Verizon decision.
the grants would be
So
the reason. There's someone's done some calculation that they need a backbone line running through there. Verizon's spending a lot of money right now trying to replace. So their public financial report tracks what percentage of their infrastructure they own, and they're slowly but surely replacing everything they rent from Crown Castle with owned fiber and owned towers, and they report the percentage. And so any backbone run, because that backbone heads towards the tower setup down it's
Promise.
east of the Depot Road facility.
Yeah.
So they could just be running a fiber through the center of Pocasset on their way down to Depot Road and call it a backbone replacement. And then just because they share the same technology and same fiber and same equipment, they could then do FiOS later, they could do FWA later. So potentially they're just running the backbone, and so it's within spitting distance of all the underserved parcels. And then they can say, hey, well, look, magically we're the low cost because we already got a backbone running, where we want it to do this. So there's probably some calculation going on that they can't disclose.
Okay. Anyway, moving forward with the presentation right now, I'm going to, presuming that I get the final repair on my heating system done on the next day or two, and don't have to babysit the my valves to stay warm. I'll have a lot more time, and I'm going to make a polish of the presentation. I'm going to incorporate this table into the report, and maybe as an appendix or as one chapter, and a much reduced version of it into the actual presentation, to let the select board know where this is going. So I should be back next week and have something that or out to you early to look over, so we can have something for final approval next week, if that's okay with everybody.
Give it a shot.
Okay, I'm going to bring item A to a close. Brian, was there anything formally done with the Technology Council Committee at all? Do you know whether they were going to have their board, which met, I believe, yesterday, move forward and actually go and approach Senator Markey or somebody with regard to the Cape's problems?
I think it's Friday. I'd have to check my emails again, but it's within plus or minus a day of today.
Right.
I saw I saw the draft that they were sending to the board, and so it's got to go to the full board, which I think includes Comcast, includes Open Cape. So whatever version makes it through everybody who's often at each other's throat, it comes across more as this is the truth if it survives the board, since it's so many conflicting parties there, if they can
Okay.
agree on a letter. So what the final content's going to be, who knows? But
What
it's being decided.
If that letter in fact has been approved and sent, and presumably Gene or Steve sends it to us, under item 4B for next week, I'm going to put a recommend or a motion consideration of endorsement of that letter by us and by the select board to send that on. We'll obviously have to read through it and make sure there's nothing that's objectionable.
I
which
can
I
give you
don't
the
think
cliff
there will.
notes, the high level of what it is. The details of how they'll say it, as I'm sure, will change, but it's the lack of speed testing, clarity, and help to towns that need it the most.
Mm-hmm. Okay, certainly we can endorse that. But I think we ought to run that through the committee itself. Jed
We
is not with
we
us.
don't need to wait till like the middle or end of February to get the select board approval for us to sign on to this, do we? Because this sounds like something that should be attended to promptly.
Anne Marie,
So
if this is,
maybe,
go ahead, Brian,
Bri-
you first.
Brian, you're muted.
I was thinking I could show the
I think
draft.
Brian's
but-
on mute instead of mine, sorry.
I guess it would be premature to share a draft of a document for review, so we have to wait till it's approved by them. Do we?
I understand that part, but there's no point in taking anything to the select board that's not ready to go. But is it going to take another, month or more for the select board to act on this? Assuming it
mean-
shows up promptly.
If we're asking the committee to be a part of something, you will need select board approval.
I
Okay,
understand that.
It's
well,
a
but
this
letter
is-
that's not my
written by
question.
somebody else.
That's not my question, Anne Marie. My question is,
What-
how long will it take them to look at this and say, okay, go?
Well, do we have a deadline? What's the deadline? Tell me what the end,
It's
Well,
my
I think the
it's my
question,
impression that sooner rather than later is a matter of some urgency to get this out.
so when do you think it'll come out
Brian,
for us
any
to take a
idea?
look at?
Tomorrow.
Okay. So next week we'd have to review it and approve it to send to select board, right?
Should-
is there a space on the February 6th select board for this to be almost a consent agenda item?
I can have that conversation with Mary Jane. We're specifically keeping that particular night. We have a deadline stop time-wise. We weren't
8:30,
originally
right.
going to have, so we have a deadline stop time-wise to end the meeting at 8:30. But I can have that conversation with Mary Jane on whether it needs to be discussed or whether it can be part of a consent agenda item. I don't know the answer to that until I see what it is.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll have that tomorrow and you can run it by her, but again, presuming we're gonna rubber stamp it, and we're not gonna change it, of course, and just say, we just need a cover letter that says, we heartily endorse the recommendations made by the Technology Council, and whoever it's addressed to, and we'll go with that, we'll find that out tomorrow. Okay,
Okay.
very good. I'm gonna move on, with that. Jed is not here. Wendy, is any intelligence about what's going on in Falmouth at all that you know about?
As I've said earlier, I'm on the mailing list to get copies of their agendas and minutes that are posted on the town of Falmouth. And ever since I went and asked for a copy of something that they passed out at a meeting, everything has gone to executive session. They're not telling
Okay.
anybody anything.
No
I mean,
worries. Okay,
everything.
no worries. We'll, once they make decisions, they'll let us know. We'll find out. Okay,
They might.
moving on. The next item is Mass Broadband Coalition update. There is a meeting of the Broadband Coalition at 4 this afternoon. I intend to sign into it, more to listen than anything else. I think they may have been present. If it was Espindola who was present at the MBI's DEI meeting, we'll get his take on it. Does anyone else care to listen in or just delegate that to me?
Go for
I'll
it.
listen and if no one
Okay.
else wants to.
Okay. Brian, do you have the dialing coordinates? If you don't, I'll just ask me and I'll forward them to you.
Yeah, I believe I have them.
Okay. Next item, we already covered the DEI meeting. Item F is the Cape Cod Tech presentation on February 14th by Gigi Song. And I think there are going to be some side meetings. Brian, do you have any intelligence on,
Yeah. I have some
what's
rough
going on there?
times too. Locations haven't been nailed down for everybody. So let me pull up my calendar because I can't. There's so many of them I can't remember. Okay, so there is an event at the Falmouth Historical Society on the 13th at 7 p.m. with Gigi. And there's also going to be a Broadband Coalition meeting with Gigi, 10 a.m. on the 14th. And then the 13th, there's also one at, I believe, 8:30 to 10 a.m. in Cave Space in Hyannis.
Hmm.
And Gigi is probably someone we want to make friends with because that's the highest up friend in high places, so to speak, I think we're going to get, since she knows a couple of other people on the Cape.
Okay.
So we should make the most of someone who could potentially be a voice in DC to make these things less onerous to small towns whenever they're proposing these legislations. Make sure you consider the little guys, so to speak.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
where did you say the Broadband Coalition side meeting is going to be?
I believe it's gonna be in Dartmouth, but they're still picking towns, and I think it's gonna be Dartmouth Town Hall, but they haven't finalized the location, I believe.
Just to point out, if we have any interest in the Falmouth meeting on the evening of the 13th, we of course have a major conflict because that's our presentation to the select board, likely.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So we might want to send somebody, have an alternate to go and take notes, perhaps.
Probably
Perhaps we
whoever's
can.
closest to the Falmouth team is probably the best one to send to that, because I'll be at the other two for sure.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Well, we can
I'll
decide on
go.
that.
I'll go.
I think you'll get along
Okay.
with Gigi there, Wendy.
Okay.
Very good.
And do we know where that's going to meet, or we don't know where
Falmouth
that's going to be yet?
Historical Society.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
Main
mean,
Street.
on Main
Yeah.
Street. I just don't know where they are. That's all.
A lot of
Yeah.
these haven't been published, the exact location, because it's so far
Mhm.
out, but the rough time and rough town of roughly where it's going to be has been, or maybe not published, but been shared at least with people that need to know.
I'm sorry I missed the select board meeting. They're always a good time.
Well,
Do
it'll be recorded.
Do we know if the select board meeting's at 7 or 6? Do we have a time?
But our public meetings always start at 7. If we start early, it's for executive session.
Okay, because there was one time where it did start early. Okay, good. I'm just putting it on my calendar.
Okay. We ought to have some common talking points at those meetings, both for her benefit and also for the benefit of anybody else who's listening, if there's a, Q&A sessions, etc. So we can work on that next week as some of this starts to gel. Okay. Let's see, moving forward to item G, media outreach, review and approval. Wendy, have you had a chance to write anything?
I
Or-
have not. There have been things going on around here that have precluded my attention. I'm so sorry. I hope things will settle down over
Okay.
the next couple of days, but I'll
It-
work on it. Has anybody got any further ideas as to what they want to see in there?
Well, we definitely want to advertise that there's a vacancy on the committee.
Yes.
Okay.
Did
Uh,
you get the her resignation?
Her resignation was filed. I confirmed with the clerk, and then Anne Marie did announce that on Tuesday night at the select board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And I will
But we-
continue to do that.
Yeah. And if we can get that into one of your short articles that we can approve
Sure.
next week to go into the we'll get it out right away and get it to
Callie, yeah.
Callie Remillard for publication on next Friday's whatever. I'm just trying to think of other items we want to include in there. Just say that the Cape Cod Commission will shortly be releasing an interim report on the digital equity needs of Bourne. And, you know, our committee is going to kind of respond and try to identify opportunities to remedy those needs with grant money and, you know, maybe with service, directing some of the service from a couple of the big companies. Anything else we can put in a 2 or 3 paragraph article? Anybody have suggestions?
Oh, I have one suggestion, and we probably need to discuss it. So the Cape Cod Commission and several other digital equity people were saying that they often see these one-off digital equity grants and they try to find some success and then showing that something was successful, then finding more permanent funding. And so they said sometimes it's hard to transition from like a one-time thing to something with a recurring budget or a person to handle it. So that might be something, maybe not ready for a press release, but we'll have to talk about with the Cape Cod Commission, because they're still trying to wrangle who's going to have staff to maintain these things going forward. So might have to dovetail that in.
That's a really good point, because, you know, even for us as a board, the time it takes to pursue all this money that's out there, and how to apply it to various aspects and progress that we want in our community. But if we can, you know, if the Cape Cod Commission has an understanding that, you know, the resources it takes to reach out, and the process for acquiring that money really requires an individual and expertise in that particular area. And if they can provide that, that's going to be invaluable to communities in finding these, in getting these funding sources.
Mm-hmm.
That's what one of the things
it's not as easy. It's not, you know, people think, oh, just fill out the application.
Oh, it's specialized work. It's specialized.
It's specialized work, and there is a lot of funding out there. There's a lot of need for that funding, but municipalities just struggle with providing resources to get it, and an avenue, right, and a pathway. So I think that's real important for the public to understand, and even you know, for those people who may be able to provide that resource to communities.
I have a daughter-in-law who has been doing grant writing and exactly what you're talking about for 35 years. But she's in Ohio. She's retiring, but she's going to have more free time. I can at least call her up and ask her for talking points.
Well,
what's the rates of someone like that? Because if the commission needs to split someone like that 5 or however days, you know, 1 or 2 people for the whole Cape might be enough. And so each town might need to contribute 20, 25 grand or something towards the salary. And then, you know, you make that a recurring budget item, and they just have a shared resource for down grants. And essentially they're going to be copy and paste for the Cape, you know, the same types of problems, same type of seasonal issues, same with older populations, and then they can just edit them ever so slightly for each town.
Right. And then,
Just
you
to
know,
remind
after you, the second part of that is, okay, after you receive the funding, oftentimes it's like, okay, what are the next steps? So, you know, it's not just about getting the money, it's about what's the process, how best to implement the implementation piece too, and what that involves.
And
that's a huge piece too.
Anne Marie, that would be, at least for us, that would be in kind of the feasibility study, or one aspect of the feasibility study of how to move forward. That's one of the recommendations at the bottom end of the report in the presentation. Recall, everybody, that Steve Tupper is running kind of a high-level planning and feasibility study for broadband for the whole Cape. And I don't know what the status of that is right now. Did he mention that at all when you, I guess when they were at the DEI MBI meeting, Brian?
No, he said something's going on that he can't share yet. And so I didn't want to
Okay.
press him anymore on
Yeah.
it because he was trying to have to remember what was public info and what was not. And I'm like, no, I don't want to make this hard for you, so I won't ask you
Yeah.
anymore.
But that's ongoing, and I think a shared position or shared funding for something across multiple towns that all have kind of the same problem, different details, but they have kind of the same problem makes a lot more sense. Having lived in Maryland for 30 years, all of even the smallest counties were much bigger than Cape Cod, than Barnstable County, and they certainly they had individuals, and even they were able to share resources for something like this with one person across 2 or 3 counties there, serving 1 million people. But
So
anyway,
when I write this little squib up, I should put some emphasis on the idea that we would really like to have somebody that's experienced in grants and contracts. It's
well,
open to everybody to apply, but especially these people.
well, we're going to, we don't have the budget for it now, but
No,
certainly we're exploring opportunities for somebody who's experienced in grants, contracts, and planning is essentially what we're talking about.
no, I'm talking
Feasibility.
about another member for our committee.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah.
Yep, it
Anybody
would.
who has,
Yeah, having worked 30 years in the public broadcasting field, I can tell you it is a specialty. We had people at WGBH who were, they had other management positions, but they were very good at doing this kind of stuff. I was always on the receiving end of these grants. I would do the specifications, but when it came to actually knowing how to ask for funding, we had people that were really good at it. And as you've said, it is truly a specialty. You have to know what it is that the grantee, the grantor is looking for, and then try to fit into those boxes. If, for instance, we're saying we're serving a specific underserved community, does that tick off something that's inside of their funding model? So yeah, getting somebody would be great. I would hope that I think the idea of dividing it amongst towns would make it something that is definitely affordable, because otherwise, I think most of the Cape towns right now are experiencing some fiscal challenges. Certainly from what I read in the enterprise right now, Bourne has some decisions that are going to be coming up having to do with funding and the number of positions that are available. So I think if we divided it and the number was small enough, that would make a lot of sense.
Okay,
It'd be high ROI.
but that's not something I'm going to be putting into this article.
no,
No,
it's just for background.
I think somebody with familiarity though
right.
of the grant
Okay.
processes probably, because Catherine certainly had some experience in that area.
Yes.
I kind of find them you as two separate but very, very, very related things. If we magically found someone who was gifted at grants who want to join the committee, that would be a slam dunk for sure. But I think we might need to warn the public that there might be a recurring budget item, given the heightened microscope on any fiscal spending. There might be warning that a request for a recurring budget for this might come, and it's a very high ROI activity, so it's probably worth it since it'll end up paying for itself in the long run. With the amount of digital equity grants there are floating around, that you just have to reach out and grab them with a specialist. And we might need to share it with, half the Cape.
And again, the multiplier on this is at least 10 or 100 times over for the cost. I have to tell you, my Chris Southwood, my next door neighbor, and in the past Sam Haynes, both kind of lamented that they were just unable to pursue all the grant opportunities for DNR or for conservation or whatever that were out there, just because they had nobody to write the grants for them. Shore and Harbor was the only volunteer staff that might have the expertise for DNR, and they didn't have the bandwidth to be able to do things like this, nor did the Conservation Commission. But this is kind of a general need for small towns, is that one-person departments or small departments so tied up with the day-to-day operations that they can't get any taken any time to think, to look at these opportunities and to try to put something together or a team together to go for these. So I think there's a lot of a strong rationale for the town considering this. So we'll add that to the recommendations here when I get into the presentation a little later. Okay, I'm going to move on. Wendy, you've got enough to write for that media article, and
Yep.
again, if we could have it and see it before next Thursday, we can approve it on Thursday, and by 11 a.m. you can send it off to
Yep.
Callie.
Yep.
So it's
Will do.
typeset ready script, so to speak.
Yep.
Okay, the next item is speed testing. And this was an item for me to do, to request Marlene to apply for the free CostQuest data license. And I did not do that, unfortunately, because of the press of my heating problems. But I will get that done as soon as I get the plumber out of here tomorrow morning. Let's see, the next item on poll data requests is, Brian, let me ask you, what is the status of One Touch Make Ready? I think the Cape Cod Commission, no, I'm sorry, who was it? It was the
Cape
Technology
Cod Tech
Council.
Council put out, if you'd like, I can put it up. They put out, they put out a first draft of a letter going to some state legislators for approval of a specific bill.
And they
And
made
is
that
that
one
going to their
public,
board
so I
too?
think it's safe to share now. It goes to their
Okay.
board Friday, but they published it widely, so I think it's safe to review the draft, and as long as it's unchanged, we could consent to it as long as it's unchanged and have it sent to the board.
There, can you all see it?
I think I'm,
Yeah, we
Barely.
can see it, John.
Yeah.
Oh, as an aside, I noticed while I was watching the recording of the meeting that I missed, you couldn't read any of these screen shares at all. They were totally blurred. I don't
Yeah,
know
let's
whether it's
take it off.
possible to make them larger or sharper or something, but there's if I were having to read these later, I wouldn't be able to.
Well, that's because the local our Bourne educational television is equipped with the standard definition stuff. Can any of you
Yeah.
see?
I
Can you
understand
s-
that, but even if you could make them larger, that would be helpful.
Let me see if I can. I can probably see if I can. While I'm screen sharing, let me see. Maybe
There
that's
you
page.
go.
Can you see that? That's page
yes,
one.
yeah, much better.
Yeah.
I'll have
I mean,
to
I
roll it
can
down
see
a
it.
little
I
bit.
can
for
see
you.
it on our Zoom meetings. It's just that I'm saying that
Right.
on the recording it was completely illegible. Yay, this
Essentially, what
looks good.
they're doing, and Brian can explain it better, but they're just pushing for make ready, which apparently is the case in many other New England states.
Hmm.
So they wrote a very succinct letter supporting OTMR S2133, which I don't know. Do we have to do anything to approve that, or you can see the list of the people they sent it to.
Hmm.
Or we'll be sending it to, because it's still
Right.
draft.
Hmm.
No, we don't have to approve it. We could,
Do we want to endorse it?
We can
Send
endorse
have the
it,
select
yeah.
board send a letter endorsing it?
Do we need the select board to
Is
do
there a
that?
need, is there a need for us to endorse it other than making a verbal,
Why
know,
why would
a
why
verbal
would
endorsement?
why could not our committee endorse it? Because
Any
standing
letter
on the
has to
basis
be, any letter has to be approved by select board, whether we're
Unders-
endorsing or whether
I understand that.
we're sending it out.
Well,
We don't have to do anything, but it sends the message that this is good for the Cape. More bodies sign on.
Can I make a suggestion? That somebody make a motion that we endorse, we as SciTech endorse this letter. It goes in our minutes, and that any of us, in any communications saying that at least our committee has endorsed the letter from the Tech Council. That's not a letter we're sending, it's just communication that we can
No,
say
it's just,
yes.
right,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, put it in the notes. Vote on that we endorsed it, and, it'll be
Do I
attached
hear,
to the minutes.
yep, do I hear
So-
a motion
so
to, okay, Wendy moves, a second,
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 John seconds, and, okay, any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
aye.
Okay.
No opposed? Okay, so that passes. Very good. Very quickly.
So who will send out, do you want to send out the note, Bob? That's an email or?
I will just say that, I guess I send it to
To Jean,
Steve
I
and
think.
to Steve and Jean, and I'll say
Right.
that, we have read the letter, we reviewed it, and, our SciTech unanimously endorsed it.
And if we send that today, they could potentially attach the endorsement email to the submittal to everyone else.
Yeah, what they do with my email is up to them. Okay, moving forward. Let me just go back here. Find my agenda here again. The last time I have here is the point of contact for the new bridge fiber infrastructure. One point just to bring up here, and I guess this would be people who are on this advisory committee. You can communicate that to Anne Marie, you're on that, and communicate it to Peter, I guess is the other one. I just reading in it came out last night in the Cape Cod Times, if they're talking about actually going through a full rehab on one or more of the existing bridges because it's delayed so long to get the new bridges in place. Something like a new cable crossing might have to go across one of the old bridges. A new installation on one of the old bridges, which
Do we
is,
have a
you
point
know,
of contact yet, even to like have these high level discussions? Or are we still kind of feeling around in the dark for somebody?
Yeah, we're still waiting on what that looks like. I mean, they're still making decisions about timing. I mean, it's all about timing and when the final decisions are made with respects to the funding. And that timeline isn't set yet. And that affects, the Army Corps of Engineers schedule for,
mhm.
doing a major overhaul. So for instance, Sagamore, if we're going to replace the bridges, the start of that can't be any later than 2027 with respects to then the Army Corps having to make some major repairs on that bridge. And then I think 30 or 32 or something for the Bourne Bridge. But that impact is going to be a nightmare. So, we're kind of caught in between of schedule wise based on decision making with final funding. So
Anne Marie, if you'd care to pile on in any of the advisory committee or other meetings, you might just say, look, if there's a delay or they have to do a major update on the bridge, we may have to, or some entity may have to put new fiber optic crossings on the old bridge, on one or both of the old bridges, if the delay goes longer, way down the
Right.
line.
Right.
And
Give-
just say
give me-
that's one other
Give 'em a
redundant
date.
expense.
Give 'em a date.
400,000.
Give
It's
them a
in the
deadline.
paper.
Well, I understand that, but if they have to start work in 2027 for Sagamore, or no longer than that, they're going to take that right up to the line. That's going to push back any chance of having any fiber or anything else like in this regard not in there for another year or two or three after that, and that's clearly not going to be acceptable. So can we say that something like make a decision, and we would like to facilitate placement of a stopgap measure, which is long overdue, by the end of 2025 at the latest? or something like that.
We don't have the authority to tell them when they're going to do the work.
No, I totally understand that, but we do have the authority to give them an earful on this.
Well,
You know,
I
make
think
them think about it.
I think just to point out that we're probably going to run into with the existing cables coming across or fiber coming across right now, we're going to have bandwidth issues just getting across the canal, let alone out to the individual users way out on the 15 towns on the Cape. If there are major delays on this, there's going to have to be new cable laid across the old bridges, and that's all you need to say. And we're worried about that.
I don't think I'd even use the word major delays, because everybody knows there's going to be delays, and major just allows them to kick it down the road a little longer.
Right. It seemed to me from reading that article, the big question was going to be, can they finish the new bridges before the Army Corps says, hey, we have to make major improvements in the existing bridges to keep them safe? And what they're talking about, major improvements, is literally shutting down the bridge entirely for several months. That would be a disaster.
Yeah.
So that's what they're trying to weigh that. But they're talking Bourne bridges, as Anne Marie said, 29, 30, 31 is what the article said. And that's, and that's really not that far away. I'm not sure they're going to get the funding for it.
Even if they did, seriously, has anything ever gone according to the proposed time plan? Seriously. I mean,
Actually, with MassDOT, it really has. When MassDOT's in control, they plow. They're like a locomotive sometimes in their decision-making, getting projects done.
can we get them to advocate for laying in better communications for the entire Cape, which are going to have to come over the bridges at some point? They might as well start now.
MassDOT is, I mean, they're meeting with us on a quarterly basis about the bridge work.
I understand about the bridge work. I'm talking specifically about a stopgap measure for communications.
They don't have that authority.
I understand that. Is there
So who
some way for them to get involved in it?
Because the Corps shuts it
I don't
down.
know. I don't know the
whenever
answer
we
to
ask.
that. I don't know if they would.
Okay.
I'm also wondering whether or not, if this is the case, and this is something Brian brought up a while ago, is there any reason to reconsider the idea of going underwater instead? Literally just going through the canal. Because we could be looking at, some incredible delays, and depending on the customer load on this side of the Cape, it might be worth it for the utility companies, as they have going out to Nantucket, to just put in underwater facilities.
It would still require the same approval process through the Corps, since they control the waterways. So it's
It's the same bottleneck.
Same
Well,
bottleneck.
it would, but we wouldn't be necessarily waiting on federal funding and to the same, the same size of funding. As we're talking billions of dollars to do the bridges. It would not cost billions of dollars to run underwater fiber.
And it would also not be dependent on whether or not anybody can even go on the bridge because somebody's working on it.
Well,
We
these
did
go
wouldn't affect
underneath.
come
traffic.
across a company that makes armored conduit for short runs that doesn't require any special cable. They sell you the tube. It's
Mhm.
armored, and you just throw normal fibers through it with a certain depth limit. So that might require extra calculations given the amount of current involved on the canal. But if they aren't in complete go away mode, that is physically an option, I guess, unless there's some kind of restriction in an area with anchorage and all that, because I'm sure there's all kinds of rules because it's federal involved.
Just a bit of background on that. Again, this is recalling the conversations I had with a gentleman from, I think it was National Grid, who discussed getting the permitting and getting through the Corps to put the gas line underneath the canal. And irrespective of the inherent danger of running a gas line, he just described all of the levels of bureaucracy and the levels of review from 50 different desks in the New England division of the Corps of Engineers to get approval for that to put it underwater. And he said anything that crosses the canal, anything that involves that at all, it's not one desk that approves it or not. It's 20 desks, and they all have their own piles of paper on their desk and their own calendars, etc. And you've got to get through them all. You've heard all of the publications and all of the discussions about trying to get a dredging permit through the Corps, and it's just I won't say it's a nightmare, but it's a very prolonged process. So that's why a point of contact with regard to fiber crossings on the bridge is going to be very valuable. Well, we don't have that right now, so let's keep that in mind. That is going to be an issue. Okay, moving forward, any other, have I missed anything on the agenda here? Okay, seeing none, I don't have a draft agenda ready, but I will prepare it again. It'll look pretty much like the one we have right now for next week. Again, the intention is I will have approval ready versions of the PowerPoint, approval ready versions of the bullet point report, quarterly report, as well as Wendy is going to come back with text for call it a press release, media outreach. We'll have those ready for everybody for next week.
Did we touch on I yet? The letter that Brian has outlined for the FCC proposed rulemaking?
Oh, I missed that. I'm mea culpa. No, we have not.
I received no comments, so if we want to live edit that, maybe Wendy can pull it up and use her favorite program, because there's no edits on my end.
I think I added one thing to it, Brian. I don't know if it's still there or not. And there was
Did you send it to me? Because
I put it in the Google Doc.
Oh,
you
might have to tell us, because
it was just one sentence at the end of, I think, paragraph 2. Just
okay. So I sent out a Word doc as the copy, given that we can't live edit on a document. So I'm not sure if I didn't remove you from the ability to do that.
Okay, was that the one you sent me?
Yeah, I emailed out a Word file.
And where would that be, I wonder?
I think I sent out a email with like several Word documents. I think 3. One was a letter to utilities, one was a letter to FCC, and one was explaining what the heck all the FCC thing is to make it easier for you guys reading.
I don't recall getting those.
I went to the one, Brian, that you would put in. I just added a line regarding not just poll conditions, but a total poll inventory as being important to the towns in order to be able to pursue bids on possible town-owned facilities.
I just forwarded the email to you, Wendy.
Okay, let me look and see here.
Oh, that's why, John. I think I emailed you Word files. You must have clicked them, and it opened it in Google Docs, and you edited the Google Doc on your end.
Right. You sent me a link to the Google Doc and the Word file. I don't remember where it is. And so I went on the Google Doc and I just added one.
Oh, so when I was drafting it, I only added 2 people to stay under the limit.
Oh, okay.
I added you and somebody to stay under the limit.
It's not I can certainly do it now. I mean, I can.
Yeah, let me go find it, because I sent out the email for the open meeting law restrictions, so that I only added 2 people on the file, and the working copy was the Word that we were sending out, and I was waiting for Word documents to come back.
Okay, I just got an email from you, but there's no attachment on it. Oh no, there they are. There they are. Okay.
Let me see if I can recreate what you did there, John.
Okay, got them.
Just
making sure we are. Yep, we're still compliant with the meeting law. Good.
Just a question. What is the deadline to get comments back on this to FCC?
It
When
should be
does it-
executive summary. I pasted that in there because I figured that would be the first question.
Okay, hang on.
There we go.
Are you pulling this up on screen, Brian?
I got
I
'em.
was sending it to Wendy to.
Okay.
I've got them.
Or
Do you
Wendy
want
is,
me
I'm sorry.
You want to do all three of them right now or just one in particular? I have all three.
Might as well do all three.
Okay, it would be
Okay.
February 13th would be the deadline. That would be 60 days, 2 months from December 13th when they put out the notice for proposed rulemaking.
Okay, which one do you want to do first? I got letter to the FDCC, letter for utilities, and the
Let's do
rulemaking.
FCC since that's the one with the clock ticking.
Okay, letter to FCC, here we go. Let's get that shared here. Way too much crap here.
I found the line you put in, John, so I think we
Okay.
can live edit that and then
Yeah.
maybe expand on it because
Yeah.
I see where you're going and we might need to keep expanding on that. But yeah, it's just you and me on the file, so no open meeting law issue.
Right.
This is so friggin' small, I can't look on the, oh, there we are, there we are. Okay, is anybody seeing that?
Yeah, we're
Oh,
seeing it now.
yes.
Letter to the FCC, okay, here we go. Name, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Are we, is somebody sending this as an individual on behalf of the town,
Well,
or?
we wanted the board of the select board to approve it and send it.
Yeah,
So-
We could send it as an individual, but I guess we all thought that if the select board sent it, it would have a little more weight. I do know, as I said, the FCC, at least in the case of broadcast, they read every one.
So,
Is that-
so this should say we are writing then, or I am?
I think we're ghostwriting it for the select board to send,
Okay,
since
so
it's the
that's
town's
we.
formal comments on this. And it has to be signed and whatnot, so it's
Okay.
better to come from the town.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely.
And poll attachments for the smaller population.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
different logistics and consent or supporting a letter from the tech council and stuff, so.
okay. I think I would say barriers rather than challenges, but is there some reason for that? Barriers sounds a little more dire.
Go right
Or-
ahead and edit it
Yeah,
out.
go
you
ahead,
see
that's
fit.
fine.
You think?
This was a very early first draft because I figured we'd have a few more comments and
Okay.
I read it quickly and it had no comments at all.
Mm,
well, it was written by me arguing with AI for an hour back and forth on what it should contain. So
yeah,
feel free to.
you could have had me for half an hour and you'd been done.
Well, I
I
had
don't-
half an hour and I didn't need to call anybody and just did it.
I do not understand the major crush that people have on AI. I'm not seeing
It's
an
okay
awful
for
lot of
very dirty
benefit.
first drafts, but then you
It's-
gotta
But
tweak
then
it.
you have to have
Right.
a human.
And
Okay,
it's terrible at
not
customer
alignment.
interface. It does, but it doesn't know what it doesn't know. That's the problem. And it can't.
May
admit
not
that it
be or
doesn't know.
is not. I'd say may not be is waffle. It's not proportional to needs and scale of smaller communities. And I think maybe it would be useful if you said, the town of Bourne has over 7,000 polls or something like that, but we're still a small town.
We have an idea, Brian, of what the total poll count is?
Something like 9,000 with the base and like 7,000 without it. So it depends if you want to include the base.
I'd say over 7,000 probably sounds like good wording.
Okay, where are we here?
Right.
Okay,
We've always been excluding the base in any calculation, but it's looking like there might be pots of money for the base as well, so we might have to revisit
Okay.
that argument.
so.
You could just say, for instance, the town of Bourne has over 7,000, somewhere like at the end.
Should we even mention that there's not including federally owned land? This is in
Nah.
that
Yeah.
base.
Again,
I think that's important to include because we are a military town, you know?
Yeah,
What's the town population these
But-
days?
Year round is just over 20,000.
So that's a small town.
yeah, because
Yes.
we're host community, I think is the language, so they have to pay attention when the federal government's impacting a host community. So it's probably worth, I agree with you.
Oh,
and
okay,
think
that's
that
right.
A mention is probably warranted, so they understand it's an army base.
You could say right after 7,000, right.
Yeah, it has only 7,000 polls.
Over
Especially-
7,000 polls without including,
Federally owned army base, so
Yeah.
we were able to exclude the army base. We can't figure out how to exclude the land on the canal. So if we're being really specific, it's 7,000 X the military base itself.
just say,
don't-
and I'd call it out specifically, not including facilities on Joint Base Cape Cod.
And it's Joint Base Cape
Or-
Cod or is it?
Or federal facilities such as Joint Base Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah,
Nice.
okay. Not including, yeah. Federal, properties, installations.
Properties, yeah.
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 Besides, we don't want any more of those little twits playing World of Warcraft or whatever they are, selling their secrets. Not a Joint Base Cape Cod. Okay, special enough for. And this sentence goes there. Okay. I don't think they should consider it. They should just do it.
Is there any value in any part of this letter with respects to that we are physically divided as a community by a canal? Does that have a place in here?
I would say
What
we
is that?
use it to reference later in our other
I did-
arguments.
down here
when
in
we're trying to get a
additional
point of
s-
contact.
Additional suggestions and concerns. That'll fit in there, I should think. Okay, seasonal workforce. Bourne seasonal nature. Well, Bourne is not like Brigadoon. Bourne doesn't disappear in the seasons. Uh,
Emery, can you repeat what you said? I think I started stewing and got lost trying to think how to word that. Can you repeat that again?
About the physical divide?
Yeah, because that argument has a lot of weight federally, so I'm trying to just repeat what
Right,
your thought
because,
is,
you
and
know,
let's figure out how to
our-
work it.
let's
Our-
okay. We'll put this
Our
down
biggest
here.
challenge is the fact that we are physically divided by a canal, by a waterway, a federal waterway.
Okay, trying to.
Yeah. So, and
We'll get to that.
That, you
maybe
know,
we
it's-
can
it's-
use that
It
to
further
get-
challenges our, you know, needs. Just physical barrier. It's such a physical barrier.
Yeah.
You know, that's really true, and it's probably somewhat unique in that you travel throughout the country. Most places that have a physical barrier, they're actually separate towns.
Yes, we
Yeah.
are the only, I believe we're the only one in the United States where our town is physically divided.
Oh, I don't know about that. Really? I mean, there's towns that have islands on them, for
I'm just
example.
trying to figure out how to dovetail it into the
Okay,
proposed
we-
rulemaking. So
can we
that
hang on to that
Yes.
for a second and just work down from the top here?
Mhm.
Areas with the seasons increasing greatly in the summer months.
Do we
Yeah.
want to talk at all
Oh.
about the lack of housing for workers?
Yeah, yes. Yes, so
About
the items that are up for discussion by the FCC is pole replacement costs, right of way easement information, large orders, and they're like coordinated response team to handle disputes, rapid broadband assessment team, which is basically, this dispute team. The issues we are having is a right of way and easement issue because we have attempted to contact the Corps of Engineers who owns the bridges, and we can't get any information on how to access it. So that's a federal problem. So we should call out in this letter the issue we are exactly having right now, trying to find out who do we talk to about fiber across this very canal. And this is an example of a dispute their
Yeah, we'll
rapid
get there.
team is going to have to deal with because
Alright.
they are the owner of this and are not providing the info. This is an edge case you probably haven't thought of, but here is our problem. How we need to be sure these new rules are going to address that problem.
Uh,
And right now, we don't know what it's going to cost. We don't have any access to information. We can't even figure out a point of contact to have the conversation with. How is your rapid broadband assessment team going to handle it when it's not just an ISP, but it's federally owned?
What's attachers?
Attachers or potential attachers. Using the
but-
word potential is helpful.
I know, but what is an attacher? Is that a user? Is that a home or business? Is that a
Anyone who wants to stick something on a pole into a
okay,
conduit onto a bridge.
okay,
That's defined in the rule, isn't it?
okay? Just so long as they're gonna know what that means.
Let me pull up Wendy's version. So the distinction we want to be able to make is that potential attachers should be allowed this information, not just attachers. So a town should be able to declare themselves a potential attacher and be able to request all of the above.
What does
Flip
this
Wendy.
mean? Sorry. Our limited research is securing contractors present.
I find Wendy's screen.
Okay. We propose. Okay, so does this does this mean what something that I'm not pulling out of these words? Okay,
So self-help is when you can't get anybody to work on the pole that the utility
So-
has approved, and you just go and hire your own person you view as competent to get the job done because you've been stonewalled for too long.
okay, so these are for,
Is that right, Tony? Is that a good way to describe self-help?
Yeah, that's good, Brian.
for contractors, contracted attachers? The idea of self-help doesn't make sense to me. I mean, that may make sense to them, but because if you're talking about self-help methods and then you talk about barriers, that's not a logical sentence.
So the self-help should be made as easy and accessible as possible so as not to be a burden for small communities. Because you could make self-help difficult by adding all kinds of requirements before you can just tell a guy to get up on the pole and attach something.
Are
So
welcomed. And
So we want the FCC to make it as easy as humanly possible for us to acquire contractors, given that it's almost impossible to acquire contractors under normal circumstances. We want to make sure the rules don't make it any harder than it absolutely needs to be. Don't come with any extra restrictions, don't come with any extra work, and be extremely simple and easy to understand so that we don't get stuck in red tape.
Mhm.
Tony probably has a lifetime of red tape he can tell you about that he's been stuck in and would probably love to never see red tape ever again.
But in fairness to the utilities that own the poles, they're gonna want qualified people who will do quality work rather than anybody off the street attaching cables to a pole.
So then maybe that's the argument. These rules should be as easy as humanly possible in order to incentivize the utilities to have numerous contractors ready, able, and willing to do this work at fair market rates.
say that again. Utilities to, oops,
Supply,
yeah,
maintain a lengthy list of approved contractors.
to maintain a list of,
A long list,
okay.
specifically a long list.
Long list of contractors qualified to go to work. Qualified contractors.
Ready, able, and willing to work.
Okay. Okay. All right. So just so that
And I think we need to be more specific because this would deter. This would how do we say, what's the way to say lessen the likelihood of a town having to do self-help.
Mhm.
Basically, we're trying to incentivize the person creating the problem to create the solution, or we will do something they're going to hate.
how's that? That makes
There we go.
sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The need for individual towns.
You might want to say this would decrease the need for individual towns to
employ self-help or to apply
not pursue self-help work or something like that,
to,
or to employ self-help contracts.
Yeah, there you go.
to contract self-help work. Okay. How's that?
Mhm.
That make better sense?
Yes.
To facilitate this. Okay. Equitable treatment and support. I don't know about inadvertently. Either they do or they don't. Okay. Okay. Is that short and sweet and decent for number 4?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Mhm.
Or we could say the FCC must take care to assure that their rules do not.
You can make it sound prettier, but it's a functionally complete thought.
Yeah. I think, just saying, hey, you can't do anything that's going to hurt smaller towns. You just can't do that. Okay, so now what are we going to say about the physical barrier stuff?
I think maybe we just lead off. I'm almost like story time here. Bourne
Is
Unique.
unique
in being geographically
By a
by-
federal facility.
yes.
by multiple federal facilities.
Well, this
Actually.
one, by
The
a
base
federal
and the canal.
facility. Well, the base doesn't divide the town. The base is on the side of the town. The Cape
Right.
Cod Canal, operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Well, I would say the Cape Cod Canal, operated by the Army Corps of Engineers. Put that after it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just cut
Yeah,
and
I
paste.
understand. Understand what you mean by that. But I think if you put it this way, they're going to read that sentence and say, "What the hell? What are they talking about?" And you're going to say, "It's the Cape Cod Canal."
A facility name, just it's weird because we always say it every day. And
Yeah,
how
divided
is it?
by the Cape Cod Canal, a federal facility operated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
Again, they go with comments and responses to comments. They're scanning kind of the same way recruiters now scanned resumes, looking for keywords.
Mm-hmm.
When they get 1,000 or 2,000 comments on a rulemaking, they've got to respond to every single one.
Mm-hmm.
And they look for keywords, and then they group the comments together and then make one response to 200 people's different comment.
Okay. So we're uniquely divided. Okay. Therefore,
Okay.
what?
Any request to run fiber between the two halves of any request to run any telecommunications between the two halves of our town must go through the Corps of Engineers, the owner of.
Must be owned
Correct.
by, approved
Approved
by,
by,
passed by.
Yeah, approved by.
Just say the core. You don't have to repeat the whole thing. The core, just COR, capital CORPS. That's all you need.
I just call it
Good.
Core because that's
Yeah.
the usual nickname.
Okay.
Uh,
And this takes for freaking forever because
In our experience, we have been unable to locate the person responsible for approving these requests.
person,
Point
office,
of contact.
Point-
Person,
Point.
yeah.
Yeah, point of contact.
Wow, come back. What happened? Where were you? We go. For this. Okay.
This would be a dispute, what do they call it? The RBAT or something. The Rapid Broadband Assessment Team will have to adjudicate.
Rapid. Is that a title?
Yes, so it's
They
part
talk
of
about in
their
the rulemaking, yes.
Okay,
Rapid
Yep.
Broadband Assessment Team, and the abbreviation is RBAT.
So they have to do this, or we
Yes.
want them to do this.
It will be one we submit to them for education, or what's the word? To adjudicate.
Mm. Is responsible for adjudicating, is that what we're
Will
talking
be,
about?
future tense, will be responsible for adjudicating this specific case.
Ah, God, as you know, I am not a fabulous typist. Okay.
We want to ensure that the rules are also apply to federally owned
Properties
properties.
as well as
Commercially, privately and commercially owned.
commercially, privately, municipally.
And maybe all ownership types. So say these rules must apply to federally owned facilities, owned properties, as well as any and all entity types.
You just say any and all entities, period, and that would be fine.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, can we go back, Brian? Where should we add it? Something about when they talk about red tagging the polls, about making an entire poll inventory available to the towns. That was the line I added.
Oh, that's for, I think, near the end. Or I don't know. Let me check. And I have to leave soon because I have to.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you got it right there. Okay, right. Specifically the
Mhm.
number and location. That's the line that I put in. And we may want to change that. You may put a comma in there.
Is
That's
that
all,
is
because it was the one thing that was missing, and the one thing that we need if we're going to try and talk to an outside contractor about the possibility of a municipal power plant idea, is that the first thing they want to know is the condition of the poles and how many there are, and if we don't have it, they charge us a lot of money to find out.
okay,
Yeah, so we need number, location,
where are we?
and what's
Where
on
are
it.
we? Where are we here?
Okay, next paragraph down, with transparency and information sharing.
Okay.
I added the line specifically the number and location of existing utility poles.
I think we should add condition of the poles and existing. Tony, what's the existing stuff on it? Existing plant? How would you word this?
Well, you have to make sure there's sufficient clearance for any other utilities to be added to the pole. So in addition to pole condition, you need to know, heights of the poles. I don't know if they're gonna really have an inventory of every utility that's on the pole.
Well, we can ask because this is rulemaking, and then they'll tell everyone to pound sand because they have their own lobbyists.
We could
And,
say specifically, comma, their total number, comma, condition, and location, something like that.
But like, this is like, what would be your dream list, Tony? If you wave your magic wand and you got
number and
everything you ever wanted.
location. Okay,
What would you
condition,
ask
number,
for?
and location, what else?
Remaining
Capacity,
capacity.
So
remaining
what
capacity,
capacity?
remaining capacity.
Oh,
Yeah, I've never experienced that utilities have that information. I mean, they're most concerned with the pole's condition and the height of the pole and things like that, and if there are any existing problems. They're not really planning for future additional utilities to run on their poles.
so
So
you don't
add
want
height.
remaining capacity?
So
Or-
add to the list height and
Okay.
any known
Condition.
existing problems.
And take out the remaining capacity because Tony
Yeah, I
says they
figured.
wouldn't know that.
That doesn't
Well,
make
we
sense
can-
anyway.
Is it something if they were regulatorily forced to do it? Could they figure out how much weight can go on the pole?
The thing is that the fiber stuff is so light, you got to really wonder whether or not it would even be an issue.
Yeah, it's more of a clearance issue than a weight capacity issue.
So maybe ask if remaining clearance. Add a comma between the two separate issues. We can ask. It probably get deleted in the final version, but we can always dream because
Okay,
this is
so-
comments.
Exactly.
This is comments on a regulation. We can dream for them telling us right off the bat, oh, there's 3 feet left on your pole. Thank you. This is telling the FCC if you're ready to make a perfect world, this is what we want. And then the lobbyists for the telecoms will come back and say, no, we can't do that because this, and that, and they'll hem and haw, that kind of thing. So this is us asking for our perfect case scenario.
The good thing is at the moment, the majority of the FCC commissioners are very liberal in their stance about this. Should the administration change and become more conservative, as it was in the last administration, that all might change. As we know, having to do with net neutrality, and it keeps bouncing back and forth depending on who's in charge.
Follow the money.
Yeah.
Who's
Well,
paying for your legislation?
I'm sure we'll talk more about net neutrality when Gigi's in town, but we probably
yeah.
need to
That's-
move that to a item on an agenda if it's needed.
Okay. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, are we done with physical barrier?
See.
Because we've already talked about contractor scarcity down here. Because we did that up here.
These are just comments and they will read them. And I'm not sure how many comments they will get, but I think Brian's idea is right, which is you shoot for the moon and see what they're going to give you.
I understand that, but in terms of this sentence here, didn't we talk about that up here? Under workforce challenges and self-help?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's redundant.
Okay. Go away. Okay, cost allocation. Do you want to say require transparent and fair cost?
I don't know if that's necessary. I mean, their rulemaking kind of will determine that. I mean, they don't
Okay.
make, normally speaking, the FCC doesn't make suggestions when they make a rule. They make
Yeah.
a rule. This is the point where they make
They make a
suggestions,
rule,
where they-
yeah.
Right, when they do NPRM, that's where they're kind of making suggestions as to what they're thinking about, and they're asking for feedback. So if they make a rule that says the utilities have to do it, they will. They'll probably also put something in the rule that says that the applicant must be willing to, reimburse the utility for expenses over a certain amount.
How about that?
Well, that's okay.
Does that
I mean,
work?
they kind of
It's-
imply that in the rulemaking.
One would hope.
Yeah.
So in terms of cost allocation, do we need this also? Or-
Original. Yeah, the original rulemaking doesn't say anything about cost allocation, so it's probably a good idea.
Okay, and is this the way you would say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it,
And-
you know, again, it gets them thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to
Then,
say
you know,
cost?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, John, cost allocation, among multiple attachers or something like that?
They're just cost allocation.
We might want to remind them how long the municipal budget cycle is of a small
Yeah.
town. They may not understand that it's literally once a year, everything gets approved. And if you miss that, you could be waiting up to, and Emery, correct me if I got the schedule wrong, but basically if you're one day short of the town meeting, or
Mhm.
even you're not even on the agenda a month before, you're
Yeah.
waiting to the next cycle. And so you could be looking at,
It's possible that it could go to special town meeting in the fall, but most likely if it's something that's for operating budget purposes, it's a year.
so yeah, a year plus technically, because you have to be on the docket ahead of the meeting far enough in advance. So if you're like coming up on town meeting, can't even get on the schedule unless you're way in advance of
Mhm.
the list. I don't know the correct words to describe that, but it's even more than a year.
Are defined and set once a year.
Once a year at the annual town meeting.
If there is no way to accurately estimate costs,
Then what?
funding can't be
Appropriated
whatsoever at all.
without accurate cost estimation,
Mm.
town funding, yeah.
Uh,
How
what's the
would you
word
say
I want?
make an-
Allocation? Uh,
If you just say
just say
appropriation, they'll
make
know
an
exactly
accurate
what the
appropriation instead.
appropriation, the feds know exactly what that
Right,
means.
an accurate appropriation.
can't make any appropriation.
Right.
It's like, I cannot make any appropriation.
Yeah.
They get accurate implies we can. Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm gonna switch to phone because I have to go downtown for some stuff. But I will switch to audio in a second and log back in.
Okay. We already did transformation and information sharing. Does this still meet with everybody's understanding?
Yes.
And record regularly.
Okay,
Okay, we done?
yes,
Yeah. I think that's good.
okay.
So
Is
now
everybody
we have
happy
to-
with that?
We have to submit this and get it in before or by the 13th of February. So I don't know how do we need to now how do we get this to this select
Well,
board?
Before we do that, let me just get a vote on approval of this. Do I hear a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Okay, Wendy moves,
Second.
John seconds. Okay, all those in favor of approving this?
I,
Okay. So it's unanimous. And now back to John's question. I think what we do is I send this to Marlene and to MJ, noting that it's got to be approved by the 13th, and the only select board meeting between now and the 13th is on the 6th.
No, we have one next week, I believe, the 30th.
Oh,
Well,
good.
that's the Board of Sewer Commissioners. Sometimes we do have a few agenda items as a select board and then go into the sewer commissioners meeting. So, but yeah, MJ usually decides whether, MJ and working with Jared, because Jared's the chair of the sewer commissioners. So, if we have enough, sometimes if we need answers, for select board business, we sometimes have a brief meeting prior to the sewer commissioners meeting. But other than that, it would be the February 6th.
Okay.
Did we send a copy?
Which
of the
again is a
original-
very,
Right, should
But
we
send
send
it
a
off.
copy of the
Send it off.
NPRM along with it so they can see what the FCC said? And then, our letter?
Yes.
Okay. Bob, do you have a copy or should I send you another one?
send me a copy of the Antrim.
Okay.
Okay, I just did this paragraph a little more succinctly. Okay. I might even just knock that out. Because that makes it look more like this is a bureaucracy and we can't identify one person.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone okay with that? I'll take that as a very, a minor amendment to this, or a minor edit to this.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, we've approved this, so
All right.
I'll send this on and ask Marlene to get this.
Okay.
If you send that off to me,
I will
get
send
this
that
on
right there.
the next select board agenda at the earliest opportunity, and I'll send the John. That was an Antrim, or was it a proposed rule?
There was both. It was they talked about, they adopted a rule and they are seeking more comment on additional rulemaking. And I just sent it off to you.
Okay.
I forgot one comment we want to add. It's just one sentence.
What's that?
That we want potential attachers to be afforded the same. So we don't want the definition of attacher to be problematic. So potential attachers should be allowed the same information rights, and a town should be considered a potential attacher by right.
Okay, wait, let's try that again. Where does that go in this paragraph?
Just add a
Okay,
an item.
potential self-help.
Nope, just a new one.
No.
Potential
Potential
definition of
attachers?
definition of attacher.
Are potential attachers are who? Or could be.
So the rules are all written about attachers, and our
Uh-huh.
comments are about attachers. We want to say a sentence that says attachers and potential attachers should be afforded the same rights,
Okay,
and towns and governments should automatically be considered an attacher or a potential attacher.
Okay. Okay. Towns should be included in the list of potential
Potential attacher or potential attacher.
of like that. Oops, except I can't spell potential today. Should this say the FCC should provide guidelines, blah, blah, to facilitate this process by including towns in the list of?
Yeah, so the idea I'm trying to convey is we don't
Okay.
want to approach Verizon and then go, hey, you don't already have a network, so you're not a lawful attacher. So the idea is attachers and potential attachers should be allowed the same rights, and a town should be defined as an attacher such that utilities cannot deny requests from towns due to the wording and definition of who is an attacher.
With full rights to do what? To
Information rights is what we want.
With full information rights?
Dispute resolution. I guess we want to make sure that towns are given all of these rights in the regulation.
But is information rights what we're looking at? Is that the correct adjective there?
Information, dispute resolution. Let me flip screens. On the phones, I can't figure out how to flip.
Oh, sorry. What I got here is should provide guidelines and support mechanisms to assist smaller communities to facilitate this process by including towns in the list of attachers and potential attachers with full rights to participate in all phases of this process.
Sure, that works.
That work?
That's cool.
Everybody good with that?
Do we need to vote on that amendment?
I don't think
Anybody have
so.
any comments on that?
That's
I
fine.
move to
Sounds
approve
good to
it.
me. That's a very good point that I totally missed.
Yep, good deal.
Yeah. Brian, for what it's worth, we'll vote again. Okay. Wendy, you want to remove to approve the modified letter so Brian
So
can vote
moved.
too? John
So
is
moved.
Second.
seconding. All those in favor of approving it?
Aye.
Hearing no objections, okay, it's approved unanimously, and I will forward it and the actual rule or rulemaking to Marlene, MJ. Should I I'll send it to two with a copy to Anne Marie and just asking
Yes.
it,
Yes, please.
pointing out that this has to be sent to the FCC by the close of the docket on February 13th.
I think they have to receive it by that date. So
Right. It's got to be received by that date. True.
Okay, just a quick point of order. Where does that go in our minutes? Under public correspondence? No.
No, it goes.
No.
It goes under that item, that agenda item. On
Which
let me get
agenda
back.
item?
Hang on.
Aye.
Oh, shoot. Hang on, I just lost it.
Aye.
Yeah,
Agenda item
for
I
I.
goes under.
For item I.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
okay, so Bob, what I sent you was the digest from their press release, and I'm going to send you the actual rulemaking, which is rather wordy. I don't know whether or not you want to, the select board would want to look at that, but I'm going to send it to you just in case.
I'll just know
Okay.
what I'll
CC
tell.
me.
And the
John,
name,
CC me on it too.
Oh, okay, I will send you
Please.
copies. I will forward you.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
Thank you.
the date for
Um,
this for they have to receive this is the 13th, you said, or the 15th?
Yeah, February 13th.
13th. Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, I will
Just-
get that out to everybody.
I'm the only one who needs it right now, because I'll just send it
Okay.
along. And if the digest is clear enough, I'll just let Marlene and MJ know that I can send the full rulemaking if they want to read the whole thing,
Okay,
or include that in the docket, in their packet, I should say.
Okay. All right, do we
Okay.
have a letter for utilities? Do you want to fool with that also?
I
And
think
the
we'd save it
executive,
for next week because we're probably
Yeah, we
running.
can save that. That's not urgent.
okay. And executive summary of proposed rulemaking, that too?
That was just to be helpful with us drafting this for today. We
Yeah,
can
that just gets sent
crash
along
that.
to MJ and Marlene. And
Okay.
as I
Yeah.
said,
So we don't need to do anything with that?
no,
Okay. Just putting things away here to make sure I've got everything where it belongs.
okay, I don't have it in front of me, but what are the two other documents? I'm getting a little lost here.
Yeah, that's
The
why I was asking.
executive summary, and what was the other thing, Brian? The
The
third
letter for utilities.
letter for
Based off
utilities.
the
Can
new
we plus one?
rules. So there's two sets of laws. There's one that's already been approved. And so that letter is based on the law that's already approved. The
Mhm.
letter we just wrote today is based off the comment period of the stuff that is not yet finalized, and which we
Right.
wanted to have our thoughts aired on and would still be listened to at this point.
Right.
Okay, so we don't need to write anything more on this one, or we want to wait, or what?
We could discuss the utility letter today because it's already finalized regulation, or we can do it another day if everyone's tired.
It looks,
Because it's
it
not an
looks,
emergency.
it looks pretty simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's.
Potential attacher.
Now, if the rule question, Brian, if the rule is finalized, who is the addressee for this set of comments? Who
Verizon,
is that?
Verizon and Eversource would be the owners of the poles, and we'd be attempting to request, well, we've already requested from them, but under the new regulation number.
Mhm.
Yeah, same thing we wanted, just we have new authority and they may or may not give it to us because they're going to try to define us as not an attacher.
Yes, well, this is why this says as a potential attacher. So this can't go out until the FCC also rules on that.
It
I would
can,
defer this to our next meeting.
yeah.
Yeah, defer to the next meeting. This is
Okay.
not urgent.
All right.
I prefer to
save
get us
that.
past the select board meeting and get comments back from the select board before we dig too deep in the weeds here.
Okay.
Agreed. Yeah, it's not high ticket, and we got enough stuff to put before the select board that is high priority. So this is important but deferrable.
Okay. All right. Okay, I got these all saved in a nice file. Does anybody else need copies of these that I'll just send it to everybody, or no?
It's probably worthwhile. I do need the copies that are going to go to Marlene and to MJ.
Yep,
So I definitely need the copy to so.
not a problem.
yeah, I'd like to see it just because I keep that stuff on file so we can go back and
Yeah.
look.
Yeah, I do too, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Okay. Comment at everybody. Mm. All right. Okay. Catherine is still on my CC list, but she's gone now. Okay,
Mhm.
that's everybody, and we will throw all three of these in there. All right. Coming at you.
Got it.
Subject to, that's That's brisk. Way to go out there, T-Mobile.
Have you exceeded your data cap, Wendy?
We don't have no stinking data cap. Besides, I paid for unlimited data on my cell phone plan because I could never be sure that I was going to get anything off of T-Mobile. And
I do the
don't
same
have,
for Comcast.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have T-Mobile cellular service. So if I have to, I can send it through my cell phone and everybody will be happy except T-Mobile.
Okay. Just moving forward here.
We're down to
We're
adjournment.
No,
think
well,
we're-
we got to go. We just look at the agenda for next week, and
Ah.
I'm just again, I'm going to modify the. I haven't done what Jed does, which is produce the agenda in advance.
Mm,
Let me share a screen here for one moment, and we'll put this back up
okay.
and share screen. Come on.
You're gonna
Share screen.
are you gonna send that out to what's her name at the town?
Oh, yes, I will, of course, do that. Yeah.
Okay.
One moment here. Let me get the agenda up. Where did it go? There we go. Okay. Can everybody see that now?
Yep.
I'm on mobile, so I can't see anything.
Okay, essentially it's what I intend to do is just keep virtually the same agenda as this past week. For the select board presentation, it's going to be final review and approval before we send it off. I have a question for Anne Marie. Do you think it'd be worthwhile for me to send both the a draft of the report and the presentation to you and to MJ to look over before we review it next week?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine.
we're reviewing it next week. It's ongoing. I'm reviewing it ongoing, and anything that's finalized can go to the full board.
Okay, no worries. I just want to make sure I've got MJ on board about the the length. I've got as Wendy pointed out, people watching the presentation on what's now Channel 9 government TV can't read the PowerPoints. So what I'm going to be doing is switching that to that was a very good point, switching that to much bigger type. It might mean going to more slides, but they're going to be more readable. None of us here are really graphic artists. I was blown away by the quality of the Recreation Committee's presentation in terms of their graphics, etc.
I wasn't
So
Bob, I wasn't talking about the slides. What I was talking about was things like the minutes or a letter or something like that. Those are too small to read. I think a single slide that covers the whole page is going to
Yeah,
be
that's
legible.
slides are usually okay. It's
Yeah.
those small little letter. There's nothing really we can do about that, but
well, I'll do a little cleanup
slides should
just to
be
make it
fine.
more contrasty, more readable. I'll go to a sans serif font, etc., which I learned from
Yeah.
my graphics courses, presentation courses. But I'll have that ready for final review next week. We will have probably some more liaison discussing about the Tech Council Broadband Committee, their letter, etc., and our endorsement of it, etc. I think Jed will be back. I'll eliminate the broadband meeting on that happened yesterday, of course. More prep for any meetings with Gigi San. I'll add the 13th and the 14th. We're going to review Wendy's short article that's going to go quickly to the enterprise. And I will get the request in for the CostQuest free license through Marlene. And I think that's it.
Groovy.
Okay? So those are the agendas for next week, and I'll get that off and get Maria to post that today.
Okie dokie.
Okay? With that, okay, I thank everybody. It was, I think, a very good, productive meeting.
Move to
My guess,
adjourn.
No.
I hear a
Second.
motion to adjourn from
Second.
John.
Yeah.
Second from Tony. Okay, all those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. Okay, thank you all very much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Right, and good luck with your
Okey-dokey.
heating problem.
Yeah, really.
It's getting there. It's getting there. I think we've identified the issue. I may have to replace the whole system, but I don't have to do it
Ooh.
until the summer.
Okay.
Ooh, if you need a
But-
hot shower, we're just down the street.
Thanks. We're to that point. I can't run 4 zones and